Group also now slamming Ben Carson's positions, particularly on health care, where they say he's just straight out of the left's playbook. They're even calling him, get this, an anti-capitalist. Joining me now, David McIntosh, Club for Growth president. All right, David, so you're taking a victory lap. Donald Trump, he gets nipped there pretty good the last couple of days in Iowa, and you're saying that your group is partially responsible for this.
That's right, and I wouldn't say the victory yet. What we're seeing is everywhere else his poll numbers have stayed high, but when the voters really understand his record, that he's a liberal on tax increases, federal government health care, using eminent domain to take people's houses and give it to developers, they turn away from Trump and look for somebody else. And that's happening in Iowa. Our poll showed it, and now 2 public polls have confirmed it, that when Republican voters really get to look at Donald Trump, he's not the type of change agent they want to send to Washington. He's just another politician.
Earlier today, when the Des Moines Register was out, I tweeted about it, got a lot of responses in the Twitter sphere. Many people pointing out that Iowa has not necessarily been that great. We haven't had a lot of presidents come out of Iowa, particularly on the GOP side. So is this even worth it from your point of view? You guys also plan to at least be part of a group that's going to spend another $5 million in negative ads against Trump in this one particular state.
I think it's important that that message get out in all the earlier states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. When Republican voters in those early states, and frankly everywhere, start to see Trump's real record, they'll realize we have an opportunity to get some great change agents, people like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, that can go to Washington and really get the job done because they're conservatives. Trump's not a conservative. He's a showman. He's sounding like one, but he's the worst kind of politician because he says whatever voters want him to say. And we look at the record of where he's been at for the last 10 years.
He's been on top for 100 days now, so I wouldn't say he's the worst kind of politician. Maybe if he was elected and didn't live up to some of the promises he's made. So I think maybe that's premature to say that, but I understand what you're saying. However, you must admit that whatever he's doing is working, and it's surprising a lot of people, and that here's a criticism against Club for Growth. You guys are the vanguard of the establishment. You want your guy in there, sort of like the Chamber of Commerce. You guys have special interests. It's the same kind of special interest that Katrina just talked about that's already knocked out governors. It's crony capitalism, things like that, and that you're defending it tooth and nail.
You know, I smile because here in Washington, we're the opposite of the establishment. We've got rid of Arlen Specter. We supported Ted Cruz over the establishment candidate. We beat Charlie Crist with Marco Rubio. And we put a lot of money into those races to help the good, insurgent, free market conservatives win. I know Donald Trump wants to lump us in with the establishment, but we're just very dedicated to freedom, smaller government, free markets, and he's not. And that's the way the chips fall.
Before I let you go, how much are you going to spend against Ben Carson now that he has sort of rocketed to the top in Iowa?
You know, we don't have any plans to engage in a money campaign with Ben Carson. What we do are white papers on all these candidates, and he's a good man, but on economics, he is all over the place, and sometimes he says he likes socialism, sometimes he says he likes capitalism, and we just pointed that out.
David, what would have happened if Donald Trump would have cut you guys that check for $1 million? Would this have played out the same way? You'd have taken $1 million bucks from him and launched a negative campaign against him.
We would have said the same thing. That's right.
Well, I got to tell you, you're going to have a tough time raising money from other people then. It's like, hey, we'll take your cash, but it won't give you any cover.
We'll take the money. You know, I thought Donald Trump said he was a conservative, so I figured it makes sense he might give us some money. Other conservatives will continue to give us money because we'll stand up for those ideas.
Is Rubio beholden to you guys, since you just said you got him Florida and then maybe you'll get him further along here? How beholden would he be to you?
Let me say, Marco has said we helped him get elected. No, he's going to be beholden to the voters. He's not beholden to us. But we know he sincerely believes those ideas of free markets and limited government. Same with Ted Cruz. And we don't ask favors after they're in office. We just point out, do they do what they said they would do?
All right.
And I'm confident those 2 guys will.
All right, well, it looks like they will be among the few standing in the next couple of weeks or so. All right, so the Club for Growth, you guys, you've got these anti-attack ads, attack ads, rather, against the anti-establishment candidates, but not everyone necessarily agrees with the Club for Growth. Joining me now, Susan Sulovic, small business expert, and Christina still here with us as well. Susan, you're the personification of small business, small government, pro-growth. You know, this is your grassroots. You represent the grassroots on the business side. Do you think the Club for Growth has got it right with Donald Trump and Ben Carson?
Well, you know, just for fun, Charles, I looked up the definition of anti-capitalist, and it's someone who opposes capitalism. I would be hard-pressed to argue that either Ben Carson or Donald Trump is opposed to capitalism. I think the issue is here they may not get every issue the way you want it, but you shouldn't be a single-issue voter anyway. And secondly, I think that they do get it when it comes to business because they have that business sense. If you want to talk about anti-capitalism, you talk about this administration. You talk about what's going on in Washington when they're passing policies and laws that have unintended consequences that are stifling the small business entrepreneurial
Although, Christina,
spirit.
it's fair to say that Ben Carson, his bailiwick was not business per se. I know he sat on the board of a couple of large companies, but it feels like he's feeling his way, or at least he was feeling his way through the process as it was going on. And I think it might nick him a little bit. He's said a few things that had me scratching my head as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because neither one of these men have held elected office, whether or not they really are anti-capitalist. But as Susan said, anyone that we have after this administration, they're going to have a hole to dig out of. We have millions more Americans on welfare than we've ever had before. We have, policies, as she said, that are making it really hard for people to succeed. Small businesses who, as you know, they're the driver of our economy. And so we need to have someone in the White House who is going to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit, put people back to work, create jobs.
Katrina, I know you're a Trump/Cruz young lady. Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. In your mind, any of the more formidable candidates at this point, would you label them anti-business or anti-capitalism? Would that be the reason not to vote for any of them?
Well, I can't label anyone. I don't know what Carson stands for. He seems to change his position every other week based upon the book that he writes. So I can't really say about Ben Carson. But what I can say, whether it's about Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, you've got two guys, the only two guys running that are anti-amnesty. That in and of itself is good for the economy. And I hate to rain on Mr. McIntosh's parade, but the ads that he's running in Iowa against Donald Trump and eminent domain, maybe they should check their roster on who they've endorsed, because they've all endorsed the Keystone Pipeline, which has 56 assignments right now of eminent domain cases, and they just seized the woman's property right here in Texas. So he's a little bit of a hypocrite on the issue.
David, I'll give you the last word.
The problem is Donald Trump wants to take people's houses in order to build his casinos. We've always been against the eminent domain abuse, whether it's Keystone Pipeline or anywhere else. You should pay people what their property's worth and let them have their property rights. What we were for on Keystone was not having President Obama hold it up with the stroke of a pen, but everybody should have their property rights protected, and the government or private industry should pay for private property when they take it. Donald Trump wants the government to do his dirty work.
Which is exactly what Donald Trump does. That's exactly what Donald Trump does. But you've endorsed candidates that support Keystone. They support Keystone.
It's not about Keystone. It's about Donald Trump using his eminent domain in New Jersey to buy politicians who will then come and take people's houses.
It's not even an American company.
That's exactly what it's about.
Let's leave it there. We'll all brush up on eminent domain over the weekend, but everyone had amazing points. I really appreciate it.